लोकाभिरामं रणरङ्गधीरं राजीवनेत्रं रघुवंशनाथं कारुण्यरूपं करुणाकरं तं श्रीरामचन्द्रं शरणं प्रपद्ये। मनोजवं मारुततुल्यवेगं जितेन्द्रियं बुद्धिमतां वरिष्ठं वातात्मजं वानरयूथमुख्यं श्रीरामदूतं शरणं प्रपद्ये।
I will come to this second part. Rahu is an extrovert and Ketu an introvert. All planets, you must understand, all planets. But planets have some duties. Rahu and Ketu, particularly these two planets, you watch out. It's a very interesting experience you will have. Mostly when you are passing through the periods of Rahu or the sub-periods of Rahu, during that period you will meet yogis, saints or go to pilgrimages. The extrovert sadhana you do as an extrovert, outgoing energies. When it is the Ketu period, you are doing an introvert sadhana. When you are doing spiritual counseling, keep it in the mind. Come to me and ask me. I would see this and I would say go to a pilgrimage. Very near Delhi you have Vrindavan. I say go to Vrindavan and do parikrama, circumambulation. Or during the Rahu period, go and do social duty. Get attached to some good social organization, philanthropic organization, and do that work. Because Rahu is an extrovert. When it is the period of Ketu, sit down and meditate more. Rahu makes you an extrovert and Ketu makes you an introvert. These two planets are very mysterious in spiritual astrology. Then the dasha of the fifth lord or the ninth lord. Mostly are the periods in which you are able to potentize a mantra. Potentize a mantra means you begin to experience the power inherent in a mantra. Now these three combinations I have referred to here. Whichever house Jupiter transits into one, Rahu is an extrovert. The sixth house represents Dharana, page 200. And the dasha I was running was of the fifth lord, which is spiritual, important from the spiritual angle. It is during this period that I noticed the meaning of that chapter of Gita, 6th chapter. This dog coming and insisting every day that she must hear my Gita part. is trying to work out her destiny. She cannot do it because she is in a bhogi yoni. But she must hear it because I recite it every day. Then came the second one into my life I have referred to. I am here only referred to the January 8, 1988 planetary position. It is given here in the book, I need not write it. January 204, page 204. Now, as it happens, when the second one, Tango, came into our house, well, a dog has a way of winning you over totally. Totally. You understand? So, all of you know it better. So much love and so much disturbance. So violating all disciplines of the house. So I have described that. Some important person came to me. I was sitting with the horoscope, I was seeing. And this dog was doing some mischief. So my nephew wanted to beat. And whenever he wanted to beat the dog, he'd come running straight into my room and jump into my lap. Then I knew. Then my nephew would be looking at it. I said, all right, keep quiet. And after I told my nephew, no, not going to beat, then only this would go away. So one day, I opened the horoscope. I was keeping it like this. Tango was the name of the dog. Came running straight away, put his paw on the horoscope. So that person was sitting there. I said, well, you have to wait till the paw is removed by this dog from your horoscope. Now, on January 8, 1988, from page 203, I am reading. My younger nephew came to my room and shed tears. Tango was not well. Gemini Lagna was rising. Now, all that I want to tell you is, my ascendant is Libra. Remember that, right? In a horary horoscope, the seventh house, so heavily afflicted, showed the disease, whatever it might have been, as being incurable. Ketu in the fourth house, aspected by Saturn, also Jupiter, indicated that the medical treatment could reduce pain only. The Lagna Lord in the eighth house was bad. Then Venus, the fifth Lord in the eighth house, was bad. From the Pada Lagna Leo, Mars in the fourth looked ominous. What could it mean? I saw Tango. He was not lively. I put my hands on his head and was reminded of the day when he early in the morning had entered my room and had licked me on the forehead. Startled when I had woken up, he stood there as though asking me if I had disapproved of his demonstration of love. And he knew that I only loved him and never even once frightened him. Nothing abnormal, except that he looked lackluster, without the buoyancy with which he had scattered the sunshine of cheer all over the house, demanding love and giving it back in ample measure. Then we ran from one doctor to another, etc. All that I want to point out in this is, mine is Libra ascendant. Where are Jupiter and Rahu? From Libra ascendant, 6th, right? The 6th house is the house of pets. I am giving a totally new meaning for transits now. Normally the transit of Jupiter in the 12th house or the 6th house from your Lagna or the moon is said to be bad. The transit of Jupiter in the 12th house or the 6th house from the Lagna or the moon is said to be bad. In my case, I have Libra ascendant and my moon also in Libra. The first time when a dog came into my life, Jupiter was in my 12th house in transit. The second time when a dog came into my life, Jupiter was in my 6th house. You see the 6-12 axis, from the 12th house he will cover the 6th house. The 6th is the house of pets. And when Jupiter was preparing to transit out, this dog was preparing to transit out of my life. In very brief life he died, this dog. But on the day of his death also, in that condition, he came to my sister-in-law, sat on her lap, heard complete Vishnu Sahasranam, and half an hour after that, he was given some injection by a doctor. That dog, that was a lethal dose. He killed the dog because some disease would have spread. I know nothing about it. But even before that, the dog must hear the Vishnu Sahasranam, even before leaving the body. So there was some sadhana left incomplete, which the dog had to complete in this. So she walked into my house, she walked into my Guruji's ashram in 1968, and he walked into our house in 88. Very good. Now you'll notice these things. When the planets are moving, spiritual messages all the time. Every transit is a spiritual message. Two minutes. Is it restroom here? No. Easy explanation of an outline of how each house in the horoscope is relatable to dharma, artha, kam, moksha. Out of these, in three purusharthas, dharma, artha, kam, husband and wife have to be together. And when you enter the fourth house, moksha, the husband does not need the wife and the wife does not need the husband. That is why the fourth house is also the house of sannyasa. Now you see that. You combine both. Brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So when you are really a great spiritual aspirant, in the higher stages you need nobody. If at that stage you need the company of any human being, it is your weakness. It is a total dependence on God. In this book you will kindly read very carefully the chapter on Nagaridas Baba. I have not met another person in my life, because 10 years I was in touch with him. Such entire total dependence on everything, only on God, Goddess Radha. So when you reach the fourth stage, the sannyasa stage, I am talking of the true sannyasi naturally. I mean, the varieties you have seen in USA may not be of that as we see in India. Now the true sannyasi now we come to what I call the esoteric combinations in horoscopes. I will take up 4 case studies with you in this session and in the next session. We have 2 sessions. I am introducing the subject which is technical naturally, but I have been assured that the people present here today would understand astrology well. So I have not asked you how long you have been doing astrology, but I would just like to have a brief background.
I started with Western astrology maybe 12 years ago.
Ah.
I've been studying Vedic astrology for 4 years.
About 4 years. And what are the things you are doing in Vedic astrology?
I'm a student.
Pardon?
I'm just studying.
I see.
So I'm not very advanced.
Oh, see. What about you?
I have been studying and doing Vedic astrology for 9 years, and that is what I do for a living.
That is where?
That is what I do for a living.
I
My
see.
job.
Here in Delhi, in Fairfield.
No, I used to live in Fairfield. I live in Cleveland, Ohio, a big city 600 miles east of here,
Aha.
and I'm married here.
Well, others I have met, I think I met you earlier. You can tell me more about him, then I can tell you. Am I blocking the way? Is it okay? Edgar Casey. In the Namantra, you have not put all the planets. Will you write it out? Will you write right there or take it out, because that is very hot, that begins to burn. Okay. Very familiar. With Edgar Casey. And many of you naturally may be knowing much more about him than I could have known. But because of a friend of mine, shall I switch it off?
No.
You're noting down. Now, many of the researches being done in reincarnation all over the world, very strangely, it is in USA that you do not refer to Edgar Cayce. Dr. Ian Stevenson, for example, has written so many books on reincarnation type of cases, very good investigation. But I have not seen references to Edgar Cayce's opinion, because in his strict methodology, he would perhaps not accept what Edgar Cayce said, but more or less he establishes the same thing. But in India, people who are doing serious research in reincarnation invariably refer to Edgar Cayce. That is how I also came to know about him. I have already told you that before coming here to USA this time, I got a major breakthrough in my researches into reincarnation. And I have horoscopes of 5 persons of both lives, previous life and the present life. Horoscopes of both lives, the previous life and the present life. And I was able to see how the principles of Parashara or principles of Varahamihir worked in that case. In doing that, out of those 5 cases, the finest case from the point of view of detailed information is that of Professor Balbir Singh, who himself is a researcher in reincarnation, and in his own house, his second son died of an accident. And the second son communicated with him. Balbir Singh has a very fine supernormal gift. He can communicate with any person in the world, dead person. And his son gave him the exact date, the time. He said, I am coming back into your life as the son of your first son, that is as your grandson now. His second son, he said, I would come back as your grandson. That was all, time was noted down, all the details came out, and this, on the appointed day, he reincarnated himself as his son. In other words, 1 year or 2 years in advance, you know that such and such person will have a male child. I have taken the horoscopes of his dead son. I have taken the horoscope of his grandson, linked it up. Like that, I have authentic cases. That Balbir Singh, Professor Balbir Singh, always quotes Edgar Cayce. I came to know about Edgar Cayce from him. That in USA also, there existed a person who did it. Now, Edgar Cayce, I quoted here, believed in destiny and the laws of karma. In a book on him, Edgar Cayce on Prophecy, that is the book, there is a significant remark, quote, one of Cayce's most repeated reference is that first rule, a law that is eternal. The seed sown must one day be reaped. Karma must have its results. This is a key to the understanding reincarnation and karma, which demonstrates the law of cause and effect. It applies not only to the present life we are living, but to the past and future lives. Our present life is the result of those we have lived. It is the cause of our future experience, for they will be determined by our thought and actions now. Edgar Cayce is quoting the Gita without his knowing. What I have told you already. Now Cayce had the spiritual power to go into trance and see what that karma was. This is my comment now. And cured many people of their ailment. In the beginning he was not charging any money, but later he Cayce. Here Jupiter is the 12th house. In the 12th house of moksha is aspecting Ketu in the 8th house of moksha. And spiritual and occult powers. The spiritual powers and the occult powers spring from these houses 4, 8, 12. The houses of sannyasa, the houses of moksha are also the houses of spiritual and occult powers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 4, 8, 12. This form a triangle. And the two planets most favorable generally are Jupiter and Ketu. Now there was some discussion, some debate about the horoscope of Edgar Cayce in some places in India and also in some places in USA during my last visits. Out of all the different horoscopes given, I said this alone is the correct horoscope, the one I am using. Different computer cost programs are there available in USA. They gave me, I said this alone is correct according to me. I took this from, and why I am favoring this, I argued out. I took the normal worldly incidents also, but I will not refer to that. I will draw your attention to some beautiful spiritual features of this horoscope. Why I am accepting this horoscope, I will not argue with you and waste your time. It is better to see the from the spiritual angle. Why is the horoscope of a very extraordinary person? One of the classical combinations for sannyasa is 4 planets together with the 10th lord within it. 4 planets in one house with one of them being the 10th lord. That is the horoscope for sannyasa. I don't know whether I had any occasion to refer to that here, but I took up the case of my own Pennsylvania in the class. Now here who is the 10th lord? Venus. How many planets are there with Venus? Right? That is one yoga for a sannyasa. Second, now you see Ketu. Where is Ketu? In the 8th house, aspected by Jupiter. That is the spiritual power of the man. Third, you see, where is the moon? 4th house. In the house of Mars. It is important for you to remember that one of the classical combinations of sannyasa given in books and which I have found working 100%. Please try to understand, when I use the word sannyasa, I am not using it in the formal sense. You may be doing all your worldly duties, may be going to the office, coming back, but inwardly you are growing and growing and growing, developing spiritually beautifully. And you reach a stage when you have no more attachments. So Edgar Cayce was a born sannyasi. One of the classical combinations for sannyasa is moon in the house of Mars aspected by Saturn. Or moon in the house of Saturn aspected by Mars. Now in this case, you are seeing three extraordinary combinations in Edgar Cayce's horoscope. The 10th Lord with Saturn, Mercury, Rahu in the 2nd house. That is a sannyasa yoga. Moon in the house of Mars aspected by Saturn. You know, man jeeta to jag jeeta. That is the word used by Guru Nanak, the founder of Sikh religion. When you have conquered your mind, you have conquered the world. In other words, what you call happiness or unhappiness are the two labels you put on them. There is no happiness, there is no unhappiness in the world. It is only an illusion. It is your own projection of your mind. If you say you are very happy, if you have a very big house, excellent house, then anyone who has got an excellent house should be happy. Happiness is not the quality inherent in a big house. It is the projection of your mind. That is all. There is some unconscious personal definition of yours. If I say I am very happy to drink water in a cup like this, in a glass like this, you keep drinking every day, I don't get happiness. So happiness is not inherent in it. When you overcome that duality, that I will not call this happy and that thing unhappy, then you have conquered your mind. Once you have conquered your mind, there is no unhappiness for you. There is no happiness for you. Life is then a story of a continuous bliss, a flowing bliss. The man who is suffering from cancer, even then he enjoys bliss. Because the physical body has no more meaning for him. This happens when, along with a spiritual combination, you find either in the birth horoscope or the Navansha or Dresh Kona, 1/3 division, Moon in the house of Mars aspected by Saturn, or Saturn in the house of Moon in the house of Saturn aspected by Mars.
What about if Moon was in the house of Mars, but in the nakshatra of Saturn?
Well, it will give some spirituality still. But what is given is, you see, Saturn and Mars destroy. When Saturn and Mars combine to destroy something totally, what they have destroyed is the mind, the moon. And when the mind doesn't exist, illusion doesn't exist. You see reality as clearly as this.
How about moon aspected by Saturn and Mars?
Good. Yes. That is good. These various.
What about the moon with the Mars aspected by Saturn?
When moon is?
Moon is with the Saturn.
Huh.
Moon is with the Mars aspected by
Same
Saturn.
thing. Same.
It is-
You understand the principle and work on the variations. In other words, there is inherent ability in this person to conquer mind. It is the conquest of the mind that gives you spiritual life.
But if you saw that if you saw that in someone's chart, you would think that the person had a troubled mind and would have a lot of problems with their mind.
I have told you, worldly life and the spiritual life are two different things altogether. I told you that Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam, that which is night for the yogi is the day for the bhogi. That which is day for the bhogi is the night for the yogi. It is a total reversal. So this moon here destroys what? Allows you to conquer your mind. Once you know how to conquer your mind, there is no definition of happiness or unhappiness anymore for you. Because you live in a pure blissful state. You are transcended. You reach a transcendental stage. So here, you find page, well, this book, not that book. Anyway, your horoscope is before you. Pardon? It is in this book. I don't know whether it,
No, we didn't read this book today.
you have not brought it.
No, we read this book tonight.
Tonight? Okay. Pardon? You are able to see? Very clearly. Now, you see the moon. Moon is in the house of Mars. Is receiving the third aspect of Saturn. The fourth lord, the 10th lord is with 3 other planets in the second house. That is the second sannyas yoga. Jupiter is aspecting Ketu. Jupiter and Ketu are the Jnana Karaka planets, givers of divine wisdom. Like the 5th lord and the 9th lord, 5th lord and 9th lord associated with Ketu are always good. I will come to those examples later. So here I find 3 beautiful combinations straight away. in Edgar Cayce's. Moon in the house of Mars, aspected by Saturn. The 10th Lord with other planets, and Jupiter from the 12th house aspecting Ketu in the 8th house. Connecting 12 and 8 and connecting Jupiter with Ketu. In Gemini astrology, the planet with the highest degree is Venus here. Atmakaraka, Venus. Therefore, the Karakansh Lagna here is Aries. Right? From Aries, the 5th house has Ketu and the 9th house has Jupiter. And the 12th house has the Sun, who is the 5th lord from Aries. So the 5th lord from Aries aspected by the 9th lord, who is also the 12th lord, who is the giver of sun. One risk which must generally be taken by astrologers when they are doing esoteric astrology is to prepare what is known as the Vinshansha, 1/20th division. If you know enough details about the life of a saint, the life of a yogi, then you can work on a very correct Vinshansha. But if you do not know, don't do that. Because Vinshansha is the 1/20th division of a horoscope. Inaccurate birth time. I have told you about the importance of the 5th lord and the 9th lord. Right? 5th lord represents the punya of this birth, of previous birth, and the 9th lord of this birth. The importance of the 5th house and the 9th house is also well known for this reason. Now, if you look at the Vinshansha of Edgar Cayce, who is the 5th lord? And how is he placed? Edgar Cayce used to go into trances very early in his childhood. By the ages of 13 or 14, it was clear that something great of the spiritual life was unfolding before him. In the birth horoscope, if you see, the moon is in Mesha, Aries, degrees are 1327, which means he was born in the dasha of Venus and with a large balance, because 1327 means just the degree Venus begins. 19 years, some months he must have got. Now I'll read out the fifth or the ninth lords of the birth horoscopes and the Vinshansha, if exalted in either of them or both of them, is a good promise of spiritual development. In the birth horoscope, you find the fifth lord is also Venus. Right? In the Vinshansha, again you find that the fifth lord is Venus. In this cases fifth lord of both the charts is Venus, which is exalted in the Vinshansha. He was born in the dasha of Venus, when he must have had his divine experiences before reaching the age of 19. Some incurable ailment he suffered from got aggravated in this period of the sun. Sun is the eighth lord. He has some incurable ailment. Something, then some doctor used to cure him. After the period of Venus came the period of the sun, the eighth lord. In the period of the sun, there was an aggravation of that incurable ailment. But it being the period of the sun, along with the aggravation and that suffering, his spiritual experiences increased. Casey. This is an important principle we have always to remember. What you call suffering is the period when you have some of the finest spiritual experiences. In what you call the period of suffering, you have some of the finest spiritual experiences you can ever imagine of. Here in this book, Yogi's Destiny and Wheel of Time, I have given one common heading to 6 chapters: Ecstasies spring from fire. Unless you go through the process of getting something inside you burnt out, you cannot become sublime. There can be no great spiritual aspirant who does not at some stage in his life get burnt out. You have to go through fires. And in those fires, many things in you get burnt out. In the case of Edgar Cayce, what actually happened in the period of the sun, we do not know. But now you can accept the validity of this horoscope for a very simple reason. You know you are able to time marriages on the basis of the 7th lord and the dasha of the 7th lord. Right? After the period of Venus comes the period of the Sun. And after the period of the Sun would come the period of the Moon. Edgar Cayce was married on June 17, 1903. It was the period of Moon, Sun. Right? In the Navansha, you find the Sun in the 7th house and is also the 7th Lord. In the birth horoscope, Moon is the 7th Lord. In the Navansha, Moon and Sun both occupy the 7th house. Out of all the different types of horoscopes of Edgar Cayce I got in India and USA, I worked hard on this horoscope. I forget who gave me in USA. One of the Vedic astrologers in USA or in India, I forget who gave me. So out of all the choices, I read about 6 or 7 thick books on Edgar Cayce. Fortunately, in many cases, I got some details. I worked out. I said Moon, Sun is a very correct period for his marriage. Are you convinced about it? His wife fell seriously sick in 1910 when he was running the period of Moon Ketu. In the Navansha, the Moon in the Sun with Mars is a clear explanation for this. His children were born in the major periods of the Moon and Mars, etc. I argued out why this is a very correct horoscope. It was sometime in the Dasha of Rahu that he was even arrested. You know that. Edgar Cayce was arrested because when he started doing his cures, people in USA did not recognize that type of cure or medicine. They said this man was a fake. And he ran into trouble in some state. He was put inside the jail. And I have seen those newspaper cuttings reproduced in some of the books.
Practicing medicine without a license.
Pardon?
Practicing medicine without a license.
Practicing medicine without a license, and well, some of the people said he was a fake. So many, as always happens. Sometime in the Rahu period, he was even arrested, but after his release, he did not hesitate to continue his practice of curing people even from a distance. After this, I will take up the horoscope of a saint of India, Purnanandji, Swami Purnanandji, whom I have seen curing people from a distance. I have not had the fortune of seeing Edgar Cayce. Edgar Cayce died in 1945, 43 or 45, January 3, 1945, the major period of Jupiter and the sub-period of Ketu, the Dasha of the 12th Lord and the 8th Lord. Edgar Cayce died in Jupiter's period. Now when people ask me, is there such a thing as a long distance cure? People in USA ask me. I said, now you will believe in it because you have the case of Edgar Cayce. But how many Americans believe, I do not know. A man he is here in Fairfield and the other man is in Bombay, from Bombay. I have seen these instances So we will take up next. Is it a lunch break now? Can continue? Half an hour more? Okay, then I can continue safely. Okay. Now, I'll take up the case of Swami Purnanandji. It should be here. No? Page 101. Pardon? I'll tell you. That is which page?
This is 101. It is proof. Swami
Anyway, you take that, I'll ask them to correct it. In the birth horoscope, January 30th, sun is only here. And that is the moon. You can correct it. In the book also, a totally first-hand experience of mine. Now here you see, who is the fifth lord of the horoscope? Exalted in the 12th house. With the moon. Now here I answer the question of Bong. Saturn and Mars both aspecting the moon. Is it clear? Mars is casting its 8th aspect on the moon in the 12th house. And Jupiter is casting its 10th aspect on the moon in the 12th house. And the 5th lord is exalted in the 12th house with the 12th lord. And the 5th lord also happens to be the 8th lord here, Jupiter. Now the interconnection of 4, 8, 12. Now this is a subtle principle, it should be seen carefully in all horoscopes. I told you 4th house represents moksha, salvation. Sannyasa. Now who is the 4th lord here? Mars. Where is he? In the 5th house. Who is the 8th lord? Jupiter. Where is he? 12th house. Where is that interconnection between 4, 8 and 12 here? See it carefully.
The fourth lord aspects the 12th lord, or 12th house, the 8th lord is in the
Correct. The 4th lord in the 5th house is aspecting the 8th lord in the 12th house. The 4, 8, 12 connection.
Also the 9th lord is in the
Yes, very good. 9th lord in the 5th. 5th lord in the 12th. Moon aspected by Saturn and Mars. Now this is a variation. I'll read out here slightly. Swami Purnanandji died in the major period of Jupiter in the 12th house and the sub-period of Rahu at the age of 95. I had met him for a long 8-hour satsang with him in 1982 at the house of a famous lawyer of India, Sri G.L. Sanghi. His disciples and devotees had absolute faith in his miraculous powers to cure. I found him as a great yogi is, telling me and others, if he liked, about ourselves and our future, all of which came out correct. You see, those yogis have to get into the mood. That is all. You are sitting there, if you want, she can tell you straight away many things. He gave me 8 hours alone. He said, I want to sit with him all alone. So I spent a lot of time, I knew the whole group of his disciples. He was not required to go into any trance like any other yogis, about whom I have written in my books, Yogi's Destiny and the Wheel of Time. During the national emergency of 1975, the then Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi, suspected him of doing a yajna for one of her political opponents, and he was jailed. Later, when it was found that it was one of the normal plots of the politicians of that era, he was released. He never even cursed her. He said that he had to suffer the result and Indira Gandhi and her family of their own. He said, it is God who will decide. I will not. He could have taken any amount of revenge after Indira Gandhi was thrown out of power and the people seeking his blessings came into power. He said, nothing doing. No great yogi will ever interfere with the laws of God. Remember this. He hinted at the sinister possibilities of their end. He said, well, they will have to suffer their karma. Why should I do anything? And you know, Indira Gandhi had a violent end, Sanjay Gandhi had a violent end, Rajiv Gandhi had a violent end. It's a very terrible story. Everyone in that family died tragically, resembling the Kennedy story of America. Kennedy and his 2 brothers, I think, or one. One brother.
The older brother died earlier, I think.
Yes, older brother died in the war. Kennedy himself was shot dead. And his younger brother was shot dead. So anyway, the Lord who created us all would do justice. Man should not even think of vengeance. He said, with the equipoise of the great yogi that he was. If Swamiji suggested to someone to do an upaya, you know what upaya is? The remedy. Many years in advance. Unlike Casey, it was to prevent the onset of misfortune or disease. He would say, tell you to do this. Those who did it escaped with strokes of misfortune or illness. 2 instances I am aware of. In the case of a newborn baby, he had said that the 6th year of his life would be difficult and had suggested spiritual remedies. It was not done and the boy died exactly at the age of 66. He said, you have to do this. The other case is of a middle-aged man who had to be admitted in a hospital in Bombay.